right, welcome in. This is the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast, a podcast that aims to bring quality education to youth hockey coaches, parents, and players with the mission of having a positive impact on the crazy youth hockey world. I'm Miles Heath. I'm your host, and today we are so lucky to have a very special guest in the studio, Danny Heath. Danny, thanks for doing this, and how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Anytime I can help give back, and my whole goal with hockey is just to leave the game better than I found it. So anytime I can jump on one of these things, I'm all for it. So I appreciate you staying on me and getting this done. Excited to be here.
Yeah, obviously, like we've never met. Like this is the first time, we're meeting virtually. So I really appreciate you being willing to join us. And I've been following you for a while. Kind of started when I started coaching back in like 2017. I think you had your Instagram account going, and
Yeah,
that was always my go-to. And I've watched you at the Coaches Site Live and different presentations. So I'm really excited to start talking. But first question I kind of always ask everyone is just a little bit of background on how you got into the game, where you grew up, and how you got into coaching. But first, where'd you grow up and how'd you get into hockey?
yeah. I grew up in Glendale, Arizona. I always kind of chirp at it that Arizona is the real state of hockey, but that doesn't fly when I'm living in Minnesota now. But grew up there and played roller hockey and inline hockey. And then when I was a little bit older compared to especially where I live now in Minnesota, kids, it was like squirts later. My second year squirts is when I started playing that age. And then jumped into the ice game and was just kind of put into the Arizona Coyotes the Phoenix Coyotes that time came in at that same time when I was growing up and sparked a little bit of passion amongst a ton of hockey players. And I just got super lucky that my birth year happened to be, I got to play with a kid named Derek Johnson, whose dad is Jimmy Johnson, who played in the NHL forever. And then another kid our same age, Philip Samuelson, whose dad is Ulf Samuelson. Two guys that played in the NHL forever were our coaches growing up. And so got super lucky, played my youth hockey in Arizona growing up from when like I said, was a squirt all the way. And we actually won the Fargo International Tournament. Little Phoenix team beat Edina in the championship. I'll never forget that.
Did they have pin trading back then?
They did. It was huge. I got my pin book somewhere. So that was kind of my first taste of a championship. And like I said, ended up playing with the same group of kids until I left for the USHL and ended up having as 13 or 14 kids from that one team play Division I hockey. And it like big schools, right? Like North Dakota and St. Cloud and Mankato, where I ended up playing. So it was really cool. It was kind of one of those things, right place at the right time. So was super, super fortunate about that. And, ended up leaving my senior year to go play in the USHL.
Awesome. And so what year was that? Like what high school grad year are you?
I graduated in 2008. And so
Okay.
So I started the season, and this is my biggest regret in hockey, was leaving this year to go play juniors. I thought I was a 17, 16-year-old kid. I thought I was ready, not even close to being ready. Was ready, like my skills were there, but my body wasn't there and my maturity was not there. Ended up going there and making some dumb mistakes. And I played 3 years in the USHL, probably played a total of 50 games just because of injury. And as soon as I got there, I broke my wrist in the second game and never really played a healthy game of hockey ever since then. So it was one of those things that, and my coach, Jimmy Johnson, told me not to go. And it's like I said, it's my biggest regret, just leaving early. You don't need to do that. And I wish I would have played my last year in Arizona and then went to the USHL, but made the jump. And I'm not upset about where I am in life, but like I said, I just wish I would have stayed back one more year and, developed.
It's a story we hear all the time with different high school players and stuff. So I think that's really impactful. But I was actually talking to Jordan Leopold this morning, and he was a part of the first class that went to the National Development Program.
Yep.
And the whole idea behind that, we were talking about how the whole idea behind that was to grow the game in the States in different areas. So it sounds like that group of kids for him and getting that off the ground actually led to Arizona having the viability to actually
For sure.
produce hockey players. So that's really fun, or that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How did you decide on Mankato? I'm curious on that process.
Yeah, so I had a few different schools that I was looking at, and then I visited Mankato, and they played the Gophers that night in Mankato, and I think the Gophers won in overtime, but it was a phenomenal game. It was a packed house, and I remember meeting all the guys, like we talked about Kurt Davis and Ben Youds and a lot of these seniors that and Mick Berge, and John Klininski, these guys that took me on my visit. They were phenomenal, and I went to Mankato and I fell in love with it, and I really liked the fact that Mankato hockey was the only Division I sport on campus, where like Ohio State, the other school that I was really considering, football is obviously their big thing there, and so really just decided on Mankato, and super happy about it. I ended up meeting my wife there, so it worked out. She played basketball out there. She was a national championship, so pumped about that. Yeah, so I just fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the guys. A guy that I played with in juniors, Josh Berge, was committed there as well, so that helped kind of make that decision a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, and I just asked because just coming from Arizona, I'm sure that, I guess you played in the USHL, so you were sort of around it, and we're getting information, but I just think it's interesting when you have of people from not from Minnesota pick a school like that. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
And that's kind of like, it was kind of the same, like when I got drafted in the USHL, the coach called me, and I had no idea what the USHL was. I thought he was prank calling me. I ended up having to call him back and apologize. And I was like, I had no clue, just because I loved hockey, but I didn't love like the fancy, like these leagues and college hockey. I just liked playing hockey wherever I was at. And so, yeah, I got drafted in there. Same thing when Mankato called, I was like, okay, what school is this? And I had a few other schools reach out, and I had to like look at, I didn't even know what the WCHA was, didn't know what, like even the Gophers, like I was clueless to that type of stuff. And that's just me, like, being a skateboarder kid growing up, and not like, I loved hockey, but I just wasn't into the side things of it, and eventually learned a lot more about it, you could say. So
that's really, I love that. And it kind of, just loving the game is, again, there's kids that listen to this podcast, and I think there's a lot to learn from that, where you weren't stressed. It sounds like you weren't stressed out about, your future and stuff. You just loved playing. So
yeah, 100%. That's what it all is about. And these kids nowadays, they got to run to this team and that team. And I was just happy to be on the ice. And it ended up, getting me a college scholarship, and it ended up working out, obviously. But I think it's because every time I came to the rink, I just loved being there. And the closest, like the rink to me in Arizona wasn't like, right now I live within 10 minutes of 6 rinks, where in Arizona we had 6 rinks in the whole state, maybe.
yeah.
So it really made it a lot to me for my mom driving me so far. And it just was, hockey's a game, right? And it's fun. And I'm excited. I'm still involved with it.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about your coaches. You mentioned a couple of them growing up, but just your coaches growing up and at Mankato, and if those coaches have kind of inspired you to start coaching yourself.
For sure. Like I said, I had Jimmy Johnson, who, he's coached in the NHL. I think the year after he coached our group of kids, he ended up going to the National Hockey League. So he was always kind of destined for that stuff, but he wanted to help his son out, which I'm super grateful for. And again, he's the one time I didn't listen to him when I should have, when I left for juniors. But other than that, like every decision I made, he was helping me make those decisions. He helped me quit skateboarding because I kept getting hurt skateboarding, and he's kind of gave me the ultimatum. Like, hey, you can skateboard, but then you can't play hockey because you're letting your team down, right? Like I'd show up to the rink and couldn't play that night because I remember I broke my foot. A lot of injuries in my life, if you haven't picked it up yet. But and so he kind of gave me that ultimatum, and I made the right choice, obviously, going down the hockey road. Who knows? Maybe I could have been a pro skater, maybe. But so he was huge, and did a ton for me and a ton for a lot of these kids that were on that team. And then got to junior hockey, and I actually got to play for JP Parisi the year before he passed away. So that was really cool. That was in Des Moines, and our head coach was Mike Gensel. It was really cool to learn from those people that have been in the game forever. And JP played it at such a high level, and he helped me switch curves, and he was just so like. One time I was in line and I like sauced the puck across the ice, and he's screaming at me in his French accent. I thought he was pissed, and he's like, no, do it with a purpose. And he grabbed a puck and he snapped it, and there was another puck on the ice, and he hit the puck. He's like, do it with a purpose. If you're going to throw pucks across the ice, try to hit a puck, try to do this, try to do that. And everything he did, that guy had a purpose for. And so it was really cool to play for that guy. And Mike Gensel as well. That guy knows his hockey, and his son Jake's one of the best players in the National Hockey League. And then I got to Mankato and got to play 2 years for Troy Judding, who gave me my college scholarship. So I'll always be grateful for that, along with Darren Blue and Eric Means at the time. And then he left, and Todd Connaught came there, and probably one of my favorite coaches ever. Did a great job. And then my junior year, Judding got let go and Mike Hastings came in. And so, and that's the year I stopped playing because of concussions. Got my 9th diagnosed concussion. So kind of talking it over with my family. It means more to me to be able to tie my shoes when I'm 50 versus keep trying to play hockey. So hung him up. And then Hastings sat down with me, and like the first question he asked was like, why should I keep you on scholarship? And I honestly don't remember what I said. I blacked out, but I must have said something right. And he kept me on as a student assistant coach. So my first 2 years of coaching, I got to coach with Mike Hastings, which he's the best coach in college hockey, if you ask me. Was bummed to see him go to Wisconsin, but can't blame the guy at all. And as you can see, he's already doing phenomenal things with that program. So had some pretty influential coaches and some guys that I lean on for some mentorship, all the way from youth hockey. And I know not everybody gets like the lineups of coaches I had were incredible, right? But I mean, I got lucky, and I took advantage of it in a good way.
Yeah. So when you were a junior, was that kind of the moment that the light bulb kind of went off, and like, I actually, might want to start coaching after I got my degree and everything? And
for sure. And I had opportunities to go like USHL route and kind of grind it out that way. But I'm a huge family guy, and those guys, my friend Corey Lieberman coaches right now for the Fargo Force. And that they just grind, and they are committed beyond commitment. And to me, I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to find another route to be able to impact kids and help out as many hockey players as I can, while still being able to come home to I got 2 kids right now, 6 and 4-year-olds. So I want to come home to them every night and put them to bed. And so just trying to find a different way. But working with Hastings for 2 years, and then another 2 years after that, as a student assistant, kind of volunteer coach style. He just, like, the details and the commitment it takes really inspired me to really learn the skill side of it. And just kind of jumped into that side. And I'm more of the type of coach that I'm not big into forechecks and back checks and what we should run on the power play. I'm more like, hey, this could help you inside of your systems. This skill can help you break more pucks out. And so I'd rather teach kids those things and then go and watch them play hockey versus having to coach them in games.
Awesome. We had Rick Beckfeld on, and he's the founder of Individual Skills, and check out that episode if you haven't. But we were talking about the individual skills side of things in the hockey world, and I said it on that episode. It's just like advice for people is like, do what you enjoy. And it sounds like you didn't want to go down that path. So like, don't force it. And just if you're deciding to get into coaching, just find a path that you're going to enjoy. And then the kids are going to get more out of it because you're enjoying it. So
for sure. Yeah. And I coached a little bit of high school hockey. We were talking before we started recording, but I ended up breaking my jaw on the bench, and hockey pucks are hard, right? You know that. So Yeah, it wasn't for me being a bench coach. I'd rather, be in the trenches, helping kids on individual skills and making sure that I can help more kids, and I'm not tied to a team. Because as you know, in Minnesota, if you're tied to a team, then it makes it harder to work with other kids. So it's been a blast though.
Awesome. So I ask all of our coaches this on episodes, just kind of like give us how you approach hockey training, or like what's your style, and what do you think is the most important things that kids need to get better at, and kind of like your core beliefs on training.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, whatever. Like when they're young, obviously you want to hit skating as much as you can. I'm a big believer in that. I know growing up we did power skating every Monday, no matter what. Even if we had games on Tuesday, didn't matter. But for me, it's like taking skills that kids are weak at. And it's gonna sound crazy, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. The story that I heard about him, he used to like, before he'd work out, he'd look like, he's a bodybuilder, right? That's what he did. So he'd look in the mirror and say, okay, this part needs work, right? My traps are too small. Then he'd go in there and he'd work out. Then he'd go back in the mirror. What doesn't look good? Okay, my calves. I need to go hit my calves. And so I've always taken that approach where it's like, let's dissect a kid's game and see, especially once they get to, that higher high school and older, what's missing, when they look in the mirror, what needs work on. And if it's a defenseman, they need help breaking pucks out. I'm a big believer in like taking individual skills. So like obviously breaking a puck out is retrieving the puck, finding an option, making that option, and then getting into space to either be another option or at least follow the play up. So like breaking that down a little bit. And I'm a big believer in like doing something, standing still, getting a ton of reps, and then starting to move a little bit with it, and then putting it into more of situations, and then putting it into small area games and rewarding it. So like the other day in practice, we were just working on tipping pucks, right? Knocking pucks down. And so we literally did that in groups of 2 and 3, knocking pucks out of the air, standing still. And they got tons of reps, and kids were spread out all over the ice, getting tons of reps, knocking it down. Then we had them moving a little bit. And then we put it into a drill where the puck was actually coming at them. They had to knock it down, go make the next play. And then when we played small area games, anytime a puck got knocked down, that was worth 3 points, and then goals were still worth 1. So we really try whatever focus of the skill is for that practice, we reward that in games for those kids. And so, or those athletes and those hockey players. So try to really hold on to it instead of just like, it's hard for me when I'm doing groups of like 30-ish, a little bit bigger group. Mm-hmm. I normally don't, but when I do have like, usually it's like 27 is the max, 24 to 27.
Yep.
But I won't do, unless it's mites, any older, I won't do like station 1, station 2, station 3, and they're all different things. By the time a kid gets that station, learns what they're doing, they might get 2 to 3 reps in, then it's like, hey, 6 minutes next station. So instead, I bring all the kids into one area, and I show them like, here's the first part. Then they go to their stations and do that. Then I bring them back, and I give them the next part, and they go back, and then I bring them back. And so everyone's doing the same thing, but we just add whatever progression it is. If it's breaking pucks out, we'll do a part where they just shoulder check, and then they get the puck right back to coach. Okay, let's go rep that simple thing over and over again. Now let's add a shoulder check and then some deception going left, and then head back behind the net. And so we'll just kind of build on it. But I'm just a big believer in like keeping the main thing. And if you jump from station to station to station to station, it's going to run chaos on kids that have a hard enough time paying attention. And we wonder why, like, we have behavior issues in lines. It's like these kids don't know what to do, so they're acting out.
Yeah.
But when we can get everybody on the same page and everybody focused, it's a lot easier to do that. So long story longer is just the idea of like, let's give them something that's missing in their game at a low, slower level. And then let's purposely layer that to get them where they need to go. So when they do look in the mirror, okay, that looks good now, time to move on to the next piece.
Yeah, and I think I was watching one of your coach's site presentations. I think it might have been the Global Skills Showcase or something. I don't know if you remember this, but you said you had like a theme to the practice of like, let's say it's puck support, and then you would start the practice with like a small area puck support game and not give the kids any inkling of what we're working on today. And
Yep,
so they just like played the game, and then you brought them in, like kind of asked them a question, like, what do you think we're working on in that drill, and kind of like plant the seed.
for sure.
So just talk about that a little bit. And I loved hearing that. And I started doing it once I heard it.
Yeah, if you can get kids to like have that aha moment of like, oh, now we're gonna do this and we're doing that, it's huge, right? And so we stimulate the idea. And I think it was one of I don't remember what it might have been angling. I think I did for
Oh
that.
yeah, it was angling. Yep.
Yep. And so we'd play a game where they had to use it, like they weren't allowed to skate backwards. And so if you're not allowed to skate backwards, in order to get the puck from somebody, you got to angle them. And so just 3-on-3 can't skate backwards, and it stimulate the idea of angling, right? And so like yeah, just like you said, we would play that game and then have that conversation. And I always bring a TV out and I can show some really good angle drills or show some really good angling clips of somebody in the NHL. Carlson's really good at it, so I have a lot of Carlson angling clips, and kind of stimulate that even more. And then, like I said, we'll just do some angling drills standing still, where you're just the one guy standing still. You go and angle them, they move the puck. You go and angle that guy, they move the puck. And even like a lot of these, you see like the 4 blue line or the 4 dots center ice shooting drills. You can add in like, and I think I did that for that presentation, where you add in, you just go, you angle, they move the puck across the ice, then you go get a pass and go shoot. And
Yeah.
so you keep that theme, and then you hammer it full ice. So you go from the game where you stimulate the idea to a small area of the ice, to like a medium area of the ice where we did kind of in zone angling, and then we did full ice angling, and then we added it into a small area game where I think for this one they had to actually go and start. I threw the puck behind the net, and then the other players had to go behind their own net and come and angle, again, not skating backwards. And so we've really like almost pre-tested them without telling them, and then at the end a little post test with them kind of having a little bit more knowledge. And that's a big foundational piece of what I do, is like constantly having a theme. Now if it's one-on-one or 3 kids or less, you can get way more specific. But a lot of times when you're working with groups of 20 or more, having just a common theme, that when a kid is riding home with mom or dad or guardian, whoever takes them to hockey, when they say, what'd you work on? They're going to be able to say, we did angling today. Right.
Yeah.
Versus like, I don't know, we did skating, we did shooting, one station, we did this, one station. It's too much. And so it's always, that's kind of my test, is like, I'll text a parent and say, hey, ask your kid what we worked on. Let me know what they say. If they say what we worked on, then I know we did something right that night.
That's awesome. And that's something I'm trying to push at Wyzetta and the Youth Association, is like, I think coaches struggle to, like, they identify a problem in their team or their players, and then they'll go through the web. And this kind of leads into my next section here of social media or internet, and find drills, but with no context, it's tough for kids to understand the why behind certain stuff. So I love what you said about the progressions, and thinking like kind of that. And this is stolen from Brandon Naurato at Michigan, the technical, tactical, and transferable progression, which is sounding like what you're doing there. So that's awesome.
He's really good at what he does. I got to meet and connect with him a bunch, and he even like when they were in the Frozen Four, like shot him a text, hey, good luck. He texts right back. Like, you talk about a good human, like that guy's an awesome human being for sure.
Awesome. So like I said, I wanted to move into kind of the social media, internet stuff. Like I said, when I started coaching back in 2017 or 2018, you were my go-to Instagram account just for skill drills. I was starting to get into the training side of it, and coaching a team. Just talk about how that got started for you, and was it just like kind of a fun thing, and then it kind of turned into something obviously pretty successful, and talk about that.
Yeah, there's kind of a bunch of stories to it. So my Instagram handles, it's Danny Hype. And the only reason for that is like in a different world, I love CrossFit. And I actually emceed for a CrossFit company that went and did competitions. And everybody called me Danny Hype. So I just switched it. It was before I really posted anything on it.
Yeah.
And so that's how like Danny Hype came about. And then and honestly, and this is gonna sound dumb, but I ran out of storage on my phone. I was taking videos of kids, kind of showing them like, hey, look at this, look at this. And then but then when I tried to take a video, I couldn't do it because I was running out of storage. So I had to put, this was back in the day when I didn't, technology is still kind of new to me. So
Yeah.
at like one point I even brought my iPad on the ice because that had more storage, and like trying to film for these kids. And it was just a mess. So then I was like, hey, I'm just going to throw these videos on Instagram so I can delete them off my phone so I don't lose the video. And so I started doing that, and a lot of people started following it. More people started following, asking a ton of questions. But you kind of hit it on the head where it's like, I post a lot of videos, but if you're not there or if you don't ask, it's like you don't really know the contents behind it of like what exactly we're trying to get out of it. And some drills, it's like, okay, I don't post everything. Not because I want to hide it. Like if anybody has, and that's one thing I want to get clear. If anybody has any questions or needs something or wants anything from me, I'm the last person in the world to try and hide some kind of secret sauce.
Yeah.
I just think it's good for the game to make it as good as possible. So I'm going to share as much as I can. But yeah, I started posting, and I noticed more and more people, and I'm super competitive. So like, all right, that video got 100 views. I want to try to get, and I just get super competitive with myself and with others. And so that's an issue I'm working on. But I think most hockey players are pretty competitive. And so, yeah, just kept posting and stayed consistent with it. And then I've been able to meet so many people through Instagram, like the coach's site. It's how I got connected with them. Bauer Hockey. That's how I got connected with them. And it's really cool to be able to just from posting a couple videos and, reposting some people's, helping them. And I remember back in the day, a bigger account reposted something of mine and tagged me. I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. So I really try and post other people's stuff as much as I can to help grow. And, people are big on that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it started out of a failure to have space, and it's turned into something pretty cool.
I also think it kind of like keeps you honest as a coach, or motivates you to come up with better stuff or explain your content better. So I've, been getting into it, and I've noticed that benefit for myself on like, if I want to post a drill or a concept from today, like I better have my stuff together and actually have it make sense. So
For sure. And it's good. And for me, like, as it got bigger, like I noticed when I told the kid, hey, this one's going on Instagram, guess how hard they're going to try now? Like they're going, like they're playing in the NHL. So, and I know even some of my own friends give me a lot of crap. Like, hey, you post a lot, like it's dumb. Instagram's dumb. But get out on the ice with me and watch a kid's level go from 1 to 100. Once I tell them this thing is going on Instagram, you're getting tagged. And so the kids love it and they buy into it. And it's 2000, almost 24, depending on when this comes out, could be already, but, or whenever you're listening to this, like kids are hard to get engaged. And if me filming you and telling you it's going on Instagram is going to take you to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, then heck yeah, I'm going to do it. So
awesome.
It's definitely a tool that should be used.
Awesome. On the flip side of kind of the social media and the vast internet world, I think there's so much information out there. What advice do you have for either coaches or parents or even players on how to identify what is quality information and what kind of you can put off to the side and on the internet?
Yeah. And that's tough. And that's why, that's always going to be hard to like figure out what you can trust and who you can't trust. I always like go along the lines of like, one, if it's a coach or something and I reach out to them and they never ever get back to me, it's like, okay, I mean, why are they really posting? What's kind of going on there? So I always try to make sure it's like somebody who's in it for the right reasons, and try to really make sure that they're not just posting because CCM told them to post that or whatever that is. But and so that's kind of the tough part. And then you want to look at like people's feeds, right? Like if they are just like one value post and then 15 buy this now type of things.
Yeah. Like
That's
what's the angle?
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we do stuff with Project Hockey, where we're trying to get kids to become Project Hockey members because we truly work on things that make you a better hockey player. But if you go through my feed, it's like 30 drills to one of those, or 30 posts of value to one of those. So I would just look at that. And there's a bunch of great accounts out there that, I mean, I'm one of the biggest thieves ever, just stealing and trying to make it better, or asking coaches like, hey, how did this go? And I've done plenty of drills that I threw right out the window because it was terrible and it did not work the way I woke up dreaming about it, which is fine. Like that's going to happen. Nerado talks about that a lot, where sometimes things go great. And that was one of the things I learned from Mike Hastings, was that before every practice, he would have a meeting with his coaches going over these things. And they would take what's wrong with their team and then identify that, like, hey, we just can't get pucks from our blue line through the neutral zone with speed. We're always getting clogged up. So what can we do to create more speed through the neutral zone and handling pucks through the neutral zone and quicker plays through the neutral zone? And so I remember they took, like, again, going back to the 4-dot drill, instead of just doing 4-dot shooting, they scour the neutral zone with tires and stuff. And so now you got to move it and be really quick through the neutral zone. So just taking those types of things and dissecting them and really making sure that it's good. And sometimes, like I said, they turn out great and sometimes they don't. And it's good. But yeah, like going back to your question, I just think making sure whatever account you're following is in it for the right reasons. And they're not just trying to, like, hey, look at this really cool drill with, 50,000 things in it, and I want you to buy this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned it, and I wanted to make sure we spent a decent amount of time on it. But tell us about Project Hockey and how it got started and how you kind of identified that it might be a need for youth hockey players.
Yeah. So like I said, I grew up in Arizona, and my mom, who's the best human in the world, I'd always come home and ask her, like, how can I get better at hockey? Because ice is, even here in Minnesota, it's so limited. There's so many hockey players and just not enough ice. And I wanted something to do. And my mom, obviously working, had my brother to deal with as well, and wasn't able to, like, and she's Canadian, but she never played hockey. So she couldn't be like, hey, do this drill, do that drill. So I would literally just take my stick and a ball and try to stick handle around the house until I broke something of hers, and she'd get mad at me. And that'd like be my at-home training, right? Or we didn't have a net or anything cool like that, but I would go out in the street and I would shoot a puck like I was shooting it on a net, and it would go down the street, and I'd run down, I'd shoot it back. And so I'm playing like back and forth ping pong with myself. And I just wish I had like a plan, right? And so when I was done playing, I had a few kids ask the old question of, like, what can I do to get better at home? And so I just started making some YouTube videos, and making these drills and putting them on a Google Sheet and sharing it to these kids. And then they would do them. They'd ask for more drills, but then I'd wake up and more kids would be requesting access to the sheet. So I'd give them access. And then all of a sudden more kids, and then kids from other associations. And before I knew it, there was hundreds of kids that wanted access to the sheet. And I was like, this is not good for anybody, like liability purposes, blah, blah, blah. So I put it into like an app, and it was a third-party app called Sugar Watt at the time. And then the kids could just become members. And this was before COVID, right? And then COVID hits and everybody wants something to do at home. And so Project Hockey was an awesome answer to that. And we ended up working with a ton of different players, like guys that I played with would do it in their homes, like Bryce Gervais and CJ Cease and those guys that played at Mankato. And then the Ottawa 67s of the OHL, when they were locked down, their whole team did Project Hockey every day for like 3 months. And so it was really cool. Like Marco Rossi, who plays for the Wild now, was doing Project Hockey during COVID.
Nice.
And so it's really cool to kind of build this following. And, we have members in 13 different countries and all over the place. And we have our own app in the App Store. And it's developed into this program where every single day inside the app, there's a warm up. There's a hockey IQ video where it's breaking down a player in the National Hockey League, their shift. There's a strength session. There's a stick handling session. On Mondays, there's shooting sessions. The cool part is you don't need, besides the net for the shooting thing, but everything else, all you need is a puck or a ball to stick handle with. You don't need the fancy equipment. You don't need this or that. And so we've really tried to make it accessible to every kid, because a lot of times in hockey, people are preaching hockey's for everybody. But then, they turn around and their camps are $900 and it's for one kid to go to it. Like that's not hockey's for everybody. So
Yeah.
For way less than $1 a day, you can get training from the comfort of your own home. And it's good on the parents and guardians because they don't have to travel. It's right there for them. And then every week and that's what I was doing right before this. We do a live Zoom call where we just break down plays in the NHL and, develop that hockey IQ because it's a very important part of the game. And, some days we get one kid on there, some days we get 50 kids on there, right? It all depends on schedules, but we always record it and then put that into the app the next day for these kids to get better. So it's this really cool development tool for hockey players to be part of a global community. The app's like Facebook, right? Like you add your teammates as friends, you fist bump in there and high five and comment and record your scores. And it's a really cool tool for kids to get better. And we team up with associations and actually do fundraisers for them, where we kick back a huge part of the profit, right back to the association to help them, bring tournament costs down or ice costs down or whatever. And so there's a ton of stuff that we do. And it's been fun to be a part of. And, we do a lot of on ice stuff as well, but the app's been a really cool project and, things are definitely moving in the right direction. And, Bauer jumped on as a sponsor too, and things are going pretty cool with them and hopefully some bigger things to come in the future. But yeah, it's been really fun.
Awesome. Talk about like your opinion on, because I'm thinking like you have the plans in the app but talk about like supervision when kids are training. Like I'm thinking of like, if you're working on shooting and you're doing it wrong, what's your opinion on like how hurtful is that incorrect technique to their actually getting better at something? Or just kind of talk about the supervision side of it.
Yeah. And kids are able to send in their video.
Okay.
We can give them feedback and cut it up and edit it and send it right back to them. And we actually do like in-game edits too and all that stuff. But that's why we only have one shooting with the Next Gen Hockey guy, my guy Evan at Next Gen Hockey, who I should connect you with. You want to talk about a smart hockey person? This guy's he's unbelievable.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so he does the shooting piece of it, and he kind of helped because we have some more on-demand programs. Like we have a 4-week Connor Bedard based program that takes kids through progressions to kind of help with what you talked about, like building it up the right way and making sure kids are doing things correctly. And him and I just came out with an Austin Matthews 6-week program to really build on those skills. But we try to help kids as much as we can. So if they're doing it unsupervised, no one's watching them, they always have the ability to send us, their clips. But we do a ton of stick handling and, unless you're like underhanding grip your stick or something, there's not a ton you can really mess up with stick handling. So which why we stick to that a lot. And, I just think that video piece is huge, obviously, if you're not there. And in the summer too, we do kind of a bigger virtual camp where we're on video with kids and we can see how they're doing it and all that stuff. So
nice. I'm assuming that this kind of you mentioned is the Facebook for hockey training. I'm assuming that helps with a little bit competitiveness. Is there any competitions that are in the app, or how does it motivate kids to actually do this stuff at home and complete it?
For sure. It's pretty cool. Like every day we have a challenge in there. So to be like, do this drill 30 times and do it as fast as you can. And they put their scores in. And it's pretty cool because like if we repeat that, it saves their data for them and shows them like, like, hey, you did the Austin Matthews one-handed stick handling challenge in 3 minutes. And then this time you did it in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. And it shoots it up onto a leaderboard. And some of our members, not everybody posts their scores because, you know, some kids just aren't that competitive, but we do get a lot of kids posting their scores, and it creates a leaderboard. And I'm a big believer in competition. And I think the more you can compete and the more competitive you can be. I mean, you never hear a story about a great hockey player. You never hear somebody say, you know, he liked to let other people win, or she liked to just kind of sit back and not really compete, but she ended up winning, you know, the championship. Like you never hear that, right? You always hear like this kid almost ripped someone else's head off because of a ping pong game, or like they flipped the Monopoly board over, right? Like you hear way more of those stories about great players, both in the women's and men's game, of just how competitive they are. And so that's why we have the leaderboard, and that's why we have every day. There's besides Sundays, we have a stick handling competition in there to see where you're at. And it not only competes against everybody else, but it also competes against yourself. Because like I said, we'll repeat a lot of these challenges from time to time, and you can see the growth over time. And, you know, it's like I said, it's like Facebook, right? So you can see in your profile all that stuff. So it's pretty nice.
Awesome. All right, last question. I don't want to keep you too late here, but what's the future of Project Hockey look like? What are some things that are coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, and our whole mission is just to leave the game better than we found it. Like I said, I got my schooling paid for because of hockey. I met my wife because of hockey. I am where I am because of this game. And that's coming from a guy that has had 6+ surgeries and 9 concussions, all because of hockey, right? So and I'm still coming back to it every day because I truly think hockey is the only game in the world that mirrors life, right? Where in life you get knocked down, you get up because it's not waiting for you. And it's just like you get knocked down in the corner. If you don't get up right away, the play's going to move on and you're probably going to be -1. So you better get up and get working. And on the other side of it, like hockey too, the harder you work at it, the more success you see. And that's the same thing in life. And so our whole goal and mission is just to give back to the game as much as possible. And that's a big reason why we started the Project Hockey fundraiser, where we team up with youth hockey associations, and kids, instead of selling calendars, you know, they just sign up for the app, and then we give them a huge discount on the app. So the kid gets access to the training. All the coaches get free accounts so they can be in there as well. And then the association wins as well because they get a huge kickback to the association, and it ends up being quite a bit of money right back to the association, especially with these bigger associations of 200 or more, thousands of dollars kicked back. And you know, the more we can continue to make that happen for associations, that's a big mission of ours. And then just to continue to grow the game this summer. It's not set in stone yet, but we have a lot of members in Oxford, England. So we're looking to do a camp over in England for them. And then we have a lot of members in San Diego. So last year we went down to San Diego and did a camp for them. We'll do that again. And so just to continue to grow the game more in these non-traditional hockey markets, right? Like Minnesota's, it's always going to be fine. It produces hockey player after hockey player after hockey player. And we're obviously super involved with me living in Lakeville and being involved in this community and in the surrounding ones as well. But go to these different areas that are less of a hockey culture and really help just grow the game and make it as good as we can. So it's been fun. So between that and the fundraiser, those are kind of the two biggest things. And then again, like I said, our Instagram and our YouTube is full of free stuff. I'm telling you, like we post drills there. We're coming out with a video with 3 more at-home hockey drills for kids to do for free. And so we are a monthly membership, but we give away a lot because again, we just want to leave the game better than we found it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all I have. If you have any questions for me that you want to get to Danny, you can reach out to me, hockeyops@wayzatahockey.org. Danny, where can people find Project Hockey?
Yeah, just at Project Hockey on all social channels. You can email me, danny@projecthockey.com. And then again, my Instagram's Danny_hype. And I do get a lot of messages, but I do try to get back. Sometimes they go to the spam folder and it's tough to find them, but just hammer away at it. And I promise I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I love talking hockey. So if anyone has any questions or video questions or anything like that, shoot them my way. And I'd love to help out.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.